They called it the hero and they called it the heels. But why was the Heroes Act and the Heels Act not the success for the second stimulus that many thought they would become? Hey, good evening, everybody. This is an Evening LALATE special report about the Heroes Act and the Heels Act and why they were not successful as written, and why come this September you're going to see a whole different ball wax. Thanks for tuning in. This is a special report in which we examine the backdrop of the Heroes and the Heels Act and why you should be on full alert and full attention as a whole new proposals will be introduced in September to get you second stimulus. Before I start, let me make very clear that what's going to happen in September is a movement through the Senate, not the House, not with the Heroes Act, and certainly not with the Heels Act. It's going to be totally different, and it's going to get you the same things that we've talked about, the second stimulus check, the FPUC 2.0 eviction moratorium, but it's not going to use heroes or heels as its blueprint. Why? Because they're absolutely horrible. Let me go through the incredible details tonight, and you'll understand why Senate Democrats and why Senate Republicans want nothing to do with either bill. First, the HEALS Act, the Republican proposal. Why is it so disliked by Republicans, Democrats, and the White House? It remains to this day a mystery who really wrote this bill, but it's likely to have been written by Mitch McConnell. He was the one that introduced it, and no one else has really taken ownership of it. When it was first introduced, the president wanted nothing to do with it, we now know. Steve Mnuchin had been drafting a proposed bill with Mitch McConnell for weeks before the HEALS Act. It didn't come to fruition. Rather, Mitch introduced this version. Within 24 hours after it being introduced, the president in a private meeting told people that he called it the most irrelevant bill he had ever seen. He said it did not cover things that he wanted, and the things that it did provide for were badly drafted. It's for that exact reason that to this day you have seen a series of tweets, a series of executive orders, and a series of statements by the president where he says he wants to give you certain things, and yet none of those were in the HEALS Act because he absolutely despised the HEALS Act. He just did not want publicly to chastise Mitch McConnell, so instead what he did was he said it in private. The problem with the HEALS Act were rampant. There was no there was no normalized number for FPUC. It came in at $200. There was no eviction moratorium. Stimulus checks called for $500 for dependents, which no one really thought was a fair amount of money. There was stuff all about it that did not make sense. The president, on his own accord, had other things that he wanted. He wanted a federal building. He wanted payroll deductions. People in the fellow Republicans did not want the federal building, nor did they want the payroll deductions. But as to stimulus, pure stimulus stuff, the president despised the HEALS Act. For that reason, the HEALS Act was really never the negotiating instrument of the second stimulus check negotiations with Mnuchin and Meadows. They were working off of it. And as I was reporting for weeks, their deal offers were no resemblance to the HEALS Act. Wow, now we know. They wanted nothing to do with it. What were their deal offers? Their deal offers were $1,200 second stimulus checks, $2,400 if you're a married couple, $1,200 if you're dependent, $1,200 if you're adult dependent. If you're on SSDI, SSI, they wanted that check. They wanted it to go out, and they wanted to go out right away. It would have gone out in the month of July, but for the Temple of Doom. They wanted FPUC to be extended. They wanted it to be at $400. They started at $300 and they went to $400. And the purveyor of pettiness, the princess of pettiness, said no, $600 or no deal. Bad choice. To this day, I'm still reporting that no one is ever going to give the princess of pettiness $600 a week. It's just never going to happen. It's a number that is so ungrounded in economics, it will never get approved. And it comes from a first stimulus package where the number was thrown in a rush job because no one had time and everyone understood, well, it's going to be, 5 or 6 months. It's not 4 or 5 months. It's not going to be a long time. Let's just do 600, even though it's probably too much money. That was then. So with the HEALS Act so bad, and with it so badly drafted, what became of it? Nothing. It landed in the Senate, and immediately other senators started scrambling. Mitt Romney wrote a bill. He wrote a couple of bills. He wrote one for stimulus checks, $400 a week. He wrote one for hazard pay, that incredible hazard pay Romney bill. Other senators, and I'm referring to Republicans, wrote other bills very quickly. They wrote bills to pay people to get back to work. There were Portman plans. There was the Brady plan, $400 a week if you got back to work. They're going to reward you for money to get back to work on top of FPUC. Remember all those other bills that gave you all that money? And then there were Democrats. Democrats had their own approach. There was Harris and Sanders, Bernie Sanders, $2,000 check for 6 months or until the pandemic settles down. There was 3 or 4 rent bills, one by Harris that provided you liability insurance if the landlord tries to evict you and break the law, a fund to defend you if the landlord tries to evict you despite the eviction moratorium. Elizabeth Warren had things. Everyone was drafting and introducing bills because they didn't like the HEALS Act. Guess what else they didn't like? They didn't like the HEROES Act. The HEROES Act was written in the House as a behemoth bill at 1,800 pages. What I've never really detailed until tonight's video is the following. The bill made no sense at its time because in March, the CARES Act, a $2 trillion bill, was the largest bailout or stimulus package or anything of its sort, whatever you call it, in U.S. history. It was absolutely enormous. And no less than 60 days later, the Temple of Doom was back writing yet another bill, $1.5 trillion more, to do not that, but to give bailouts to states that would carry them for 2 more years. It was like you had just fed someone, and 10 seconds later they came back and said, I don't want an extra serving. I want the entire kitchen. And I want the kitchen next door and the kitchen down the street. It was truly, in hindsight, craziness for someone to no less than 60 days after a first stimulus package is done to come back and take that package and take it from $2 trillion to $3.5 trillion when you weren't even done with the first stimulus package. What makes this even more crazy, and why a lot of people did not get behind the HEROES Act, was because it was written at a time in which there actually was other rounds of stimulus going on. Those are often called the second, third, fourth stimulus rounds. This one is sometimes called the fifth. And while the HEROES Act has incredible provisions in it, it has incredible relief for eviction moratorium, it has incredible relief for rent aid, it has incredible relief for hazard pay. It has a lot of stuff that's absolutely, categorically, horribly written across the board. I can detail to you everything that the viewers of this channel have universally panned from the HEROES Act over the last few weeks. 1, they have panned the the hazard pay provision that says the employer may apply for you, does not have to apply for it. It actually says the employer does not have to apply for you, and also says there's no recourse against the employer to apply for you. So in essence, it's a bill that someone doesn't have to do anything. It's so insanely badly written that people are very worried, including viewers of this channel, whether or not it will ever work. Next, eviction moratorium. The eviction moratorium provision of the HEROES Act is so poorly drafted that Harris, the VP nominee for Biden, says, hey, they'll just violate the rule. Under the first stimulus package, there was an eviction moratorium that went all the way from March to July. Guess what happened? Landlords rampantly violated the law because, one, there was no provision for penalty under the CARES Act to penalize them if they violated the law, and two, there was no, place or forum to really dole it out. And so Harris really slammed this HEROES Act and saying, it's just a bill that just proposes something that people will violate, and you can't do anything, and you don't have the funds to defend against their violations. As a career prosecutor, she was exactly correct. So as we sit here with the HEROES Act tonight, what really does it do and what does it not do? Well, Mark Meadows, in an interview today, said that he asked the Temple of Doom on Friday, what really are you doing with your numbers? You're at 3-3, you were at 3-3, now you're at 2-2, you were at 2-4 yesterday. What does 2-2 represent? I said, what does the 2-2 represent? You know what her response was? I'm not going to tell you. The reason why, she doesn't know. In all her press releases for the last 2 weeks, she doesn't give a single darn number. Her best pony show was setting up a purple poster. Remember that one? About 2 weeks ago, that had 4 numbers on it. 4 numbers to describe an 1,800-page bill? Needless to say, 3 of the numbers were incorrect. But the big one tonight, of course, is the Moody's Analytics report that says that $915 billion that is allocated in the HEROES Act that is really killing the stimulus package is money that is not needed. It seeks to give funding to states and local, not to deal with COVID-19, but to make their budget for the next 2 years. Why are we funding states for 2 years? What does that have to do with COVID-19? Even worse, it says that the only relief that they need to survive their budget gap because of COVID-19 this year is $400 billion. And on Friday, the president came up $300 billion to now $1.3 billion, making it now a $1 billion fight, a mere $1 billion. As the speaker said, when asked what happened when she got the $1.3 trillion offer, she said it was much of nothing. Much of nothing. It's exactly what America needs. So as you go into the new month of September and you wonder, where are we and what's going on? I need you to understand, HEROES and HEALS may have been what we talked a lot about in July and June, but we're not going to be really talking about it anymore. An irrelevant bill, in the case of the HEALS Act, that Republicans don't support. A behemoth of the HEROES Act that Democrats don't support. The Democrats have written her to say, hey, get rid of this crazy-ass bill. It forever will be seen as a behemoth that was too overrun with craziness and was not nearly tailored to what needed to be done. And what you're going to see is brand new stuff. It will embody everything that the viewers of this channel have hoped for. FPUC, unemployment benefits, hazard pay, stimulus checks, eviction moratorium, but not done in over 1,800 pages. This video is very important for me to record because you have to understand where we're going and where we're landing. And to understand that path, you need to understand where we came from. Do me 3 favors. First, subscribe and hit that alert button on the front of this channel. We're trying to reach 250,000 subscribers. We're going to try to push for 25,000 over the next 2 weeks. I think we can do it. Last week we added 25,000 in 7 days. We're the first channel in the history of YouTube to reach 200,000 subscribers since launching less than 3 months and a week ago. Incredible. And also like this video, it helps the algorithm so that videos with a lot of facts, a lot of information like this video go higher in the ranking as opposed to those other videos that are doing this and this and this and this and they're telling you you're going to get a $20,000 stimulus check tomorrow and you're going to have a new Bugatti in the driveway this morning. It's just enough of that. It's time to get this to the top. And thank you for being such a wonderful community of friends who are informed and have the spirits of one another in their hearts. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, stay focused. Have a great evening. See you tomorrow morning on LALATE Mornings at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And stay with LA for more.